Hello. I just want to have a quick go through the tutorial 7 questions, which is about the test controls. Because we are preparing for the final exam, so this review of those questions will be very quick and also very brief. For the detailed answers, you can go to the slides and read the answers carefully by yourself. Okay, so on test controls. On test controls, firstly, we need to know actually when we assess the control rates as less than high, then we will sort of rely on the internal control of this company. In that basis, auditors will need to do the test controls in a more or less extent. So when we do the test of controls, actually what we want to test is the control is in place, the prescribed controls are in place, and also those prescribed controls are effective. In designing the test controls, as we mentioned in the lecture, we need to look at the nature, timing, and extent of the test controls. So basically, when we look at the nature for test control procedures, the test the normal test control tests are from inquiries, observations, inspections, or performance. In terms of timing, so test control is usually conducted likely 1 month or 1.5 months before the end of the year, but also by the end of the year, there are also some transaction tests, which could also be the evidence for test controls as well. For the extent of test control, it really based on the preliminary assessment of control risk. So for the extent of test controls, really based on the preliminary assessment of control risk. So if the control risk has been assessed as very low, actually, auditors will need more evidence to show the low-level assessed control risk is really low. So sufficient evidence from test controls are needed. Okay, so, and also from the lecture example, we provide an example regarding the test control on sales, regarding the completeness assertion. So in that lecture example, we mentioned what controls for the completeness assertion would be quite reasonable, like pre-numbered shipping documents. Those important fundamental documents will need to be sequentially accounted for and also sequentially accounted for as well. So pre-numbered and sequentially accounted for is a set of tests that should come together for the completeness assertion. And then also we are going to inspect other documents to ensure those other underlying documents matched with the sales invoices and approved sales orders. Because those controls are quite important, then after we could identify the controls, we can design the corresponding test controls. For example, for the pre-numbered shipping documents, of course, we could inspect the availability of pre-numbered shipping documents. Because the control points were sequentially accounting for shipping documents, then we are going to test the numerical sequence of shipping documents or other evidence to provide similar evidence for the numerical sequence have already been checked. For the matching, then we are going to do the sample test to get a sample of shipping documents and inspect the matching sales invoices and sales orders. So from this very simple example, what we want to show you is when we have certain assertion at risk, you should first consider what are the necessary controls And then based on those control points, you can easily design the test controls. Therefore, when you want to design a test control for a certain audit area, it will be very important for you to understand the operation procedures, the accounting treatments, and key risk areas, key control points, key control activities, and therefore you will be able to design the corresponding test control procedures. So let's have a look at the tutorial questions. We have the questions from 8.19 to 8.22. Question 8.19, that is based on a small case regarding the test control over payrolls. You need to identify 3 reasons why the audit assistant's conclusion is not correct, and also state the correct conclusion the audit assistant should have reached. So on this page, we highlighted some important, what I think is important information from the case. First, the company relaxing pool, retail spa pools, and has stores across Australia, which is business background. And the test control is about the payroll section. And also in the working paper, he has indicated tolerant rate of deviation for the test has been set at 5%. 24 employees' pay were selected from the weekly payroll reports. 2 immaterial errors were found, and also errors were discussed with the clients who corrected them based on information provided by audit staff. Because the error for the materiality has been set as $30 each, and subsequently corrected payroll controls are working satisfactorily, and that is sufficient appropriate audit evidence to rely upon. That was the conclusion. What do you think? So based on the standard solution, so in this sense, the tolerant rate for deviation has been set as 5%. That actually means if the deviation of lack of control is over 5% of the total sample, then the test control results is not satisfactory. So what happened in this case? So the actual rate of deviation has been 8.3%, which is 2 out of 24. Then it is greater than the tolerant level. So the evidence about the test control is not sufficient and appropriate. Okay, so if we look at this question, you could see this question as a question to evaluate the sufficient level of test controls. So this question is also about sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the evidence on the controls. Okay, the second question, which is about a quite long case. Which is about the purchase cycle of articles and photographs. The question actually asks us to identify 3 test controls regarding the purchase of articles and photographs, and also indicate whether it is appropriate to follow the advices of your assistant auditor to accept the results of the interim audit as applicable for the whole year. So I'm going to leave you the time to read the case because it is quite long. So in the final exam, there might also be quite long, up to 1-page cases that will include a lot of information for you to analyze, and also there might be noisy information plus useful information. So you need to be able to identify useful information from the bunch of noise. Because the case could be quite complex. So when the business cycle is complex, when the case has been complex, I would suggest to use the Excel spreadsheet to list the procedures and then to help you get a full picture of what is going on. So for example, in this case, once I just identify all the information and put them into the spreadsheet, it seems something has come to my attention. For example, here, the sales team members invoice and record the sales and discounts. It seems to be a problem of segregation of duties. And also the CEO evaluates and also decides. So it seems, and also there are a lot of roles has been conducted by the CEOs. It seems there also a lack of segregation in the CEO roles. Also here, notes are not kept. I think, so proper accounting records, proper management records will be very important for all the company's control. And then CEO approval for payment is also part of lack of segregation duties for CEO roles. And also here, the ETF due date, which is 30 days after the month's end. So if you have some detailed knowledge about the case, you will see actually, so once there are any unexpected delay in the shipping, then the company may not have enough time to verify the purchased items. Also, no statement has been sent, has also been identified as a potential control issue, right? So based on that, we just draft a very simple answer. However, behind of those answers, you could see the very detailed, very subtle analysis has already been conducted in relation to the case. Okay. On this question, I also want to emphasize something regarding the requirements and also the expectations. So from requirement required A, identify 3 test controls. So there are a lot of controls has been conducted in this case, but you need to list at least 3 test controls, right? Second, indicate whether it is appropriate to accept the results of the interim audit. So we actually need to go back to see what is the interim audit results. And in the interim audit, it says she thinks the results of the interim audit are applicable for the whole year. But actually, for internal control, one of the key considerations is about the continuity of the internal control. Therefore, accounting standards required additional evidence for the effective of the controls for the remaining period to support the evidence obtained during the interim audit. So this is official and also a regulatory reply to this question. Okay. All right, so the third question is 8.2021. So based on the very simple case, you are required to provide example of one procedure that could be used to test the control for each of the key controls identified above. So the question itself is very, very simple regarding the cash receipts. So I'm not going to go to the details, but apparently this answer just gave you one example, and apparently you could have a different test control, right? I want to emphasize something in the question. So in the question, provide an example of one procedure. However, you know, in this question, this test procedure is the test of control procedure. So it is important when you design the test control procedures, your design is based on the control points, right? And also, so usually when you have those control activities, you identify those relevant assertions and then identify the key control points, therefore to design the test of control procedures. So we're not going to go to the details. I think it's, the table itself can explain. Okay, so the last question. You are the audit senior for the year ended June 2018. So identify key control and determine the appropriate test control you would employ for each controls. So I think also important for us to understand the question. So first you need to identify the key controls, and for those identified key controls, we are going to design the appropriate test of controls. Remember here, the question has been different. Here we ask the appropriate test controls. So it's not the random one, okay? So suppose you have finished your reading to the question, what are the key controls identified? First, the credit limit on orders are reviewed by the credit manager for their approval. Second, orders are subject to various computer added checks. The third one, rejected orders are noted by the data entry clerk and passed to the supervisor for investigation. The fourth one, segregation duties in receiving, entering, checking, and picking orders. So on each of that, the test control is actually designed to be correspondent to the control points. For example, the first one, which is about the credit limit. So we select sample of sales and ensure all sales are made to the authorized customers. We want to check the evidence of the credit manager's approval to those credit limits. The second one, control points, is about the computer added checks. So because that is, this control is conducted in the system, so we can do the performance regarding those added check on a sample of sales orders. Otherwise, we could use the test data to submit a dummy invoice with errors and see if it has been rejected, etc. There are also some other ways in terms of the test controls. The third one is about further investigation for those rejected orders by the supervisors. So we just need to select the sample of rejected orders to check it has already been investigated or followed up by the proper supervisors. Segregation duties, so we could use observations. Of course, we can also do the sample of sales inspection to ensure the different procedures are conducted by different persons to ensure those segregation of duties. Okay, so my introduction on those questions has been very simple, but the foundation is, I believe, the answers on the slides can explain themselves. If you do have problems in understanding them, just please feel free to give me an email, or we can make a separate appointment to go through those questions into more details. Okay, so that is tutorial 7.